Welcome to Reform Thinking, the podcast where we pursue knowledge and clarity.
And welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take your sources, unpack the really significant points, and hopefully deliver some surprising facts and fresh perspectives as we go.
Today we've got a really vital topic in front of us, one that gets right to the heart of what it means to live in a way that genuinely honors God. We're digging into John Piper's All That Jesus Commanded, specifically the section, Your righteousness must exceed that of the Pharisees, clean the inside of the cup.
And we've also got some related study notes, which are, well, pretty insightful. They really help unpack these texts.
They do. So our aim today, our mission for this deep dive, is really to uncover Jesus' critique of the religious leaders back in his day. It was pretty sharp.
Oh, absolutely. And maybe even more crucial, what that critique teaches us about what genuine righteousness actually looks like.
Right. We want to get beyond just, looking at external actions and really try to grasp the inner condition that God truly seeks.
So get ready to perhaps rethink what it means to be truly clean in God's eyes. It's a core idea, really foundational, and it still challenges us today, doesn't it?
It definitely does. So to guide us, we'll be working mainly through passages from the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John too, where Jesus confronts the Pharisees directly.
Yeah, these texts really shine a light on a central truth about the human heart and God's call for, well, real change from the inside out.
It was a revolutionary message back then, and honestly, it still feels pretty radical for us now. What's amazing isn't just that Jesus critiqued them, but how their practices, which look so righteous on the surface, were actually the complete opposite of what God wanted. It's a paradox, really, and one that can still trap people today.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's dive straight into the core issue, the flawed piety of the Pharisees. The scriptures paint a remarkably clear picture here. Their outward show consistently masked this deep inner corruption.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it, if these were the supposed spiritual guides, the experts of their time, what was really going on underneath all that?
Exactly.
And Jesus, well, he gave the answer. The basic problem for the Pharisees, and Jesus pointed this out with just stark clarity, was this huge disconnect between how they looked on the outside and what they were like on the inside.
Right.
You see it so vividly in Matthew 23, verses 25 and 26, where Jesus says, "You clean the outside of the cup and the plate, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence." That cup metaphor is just incredibly powerful.
It really is.
It shows their, meticulous attention to looking clean, their strict following of rules on the surface, but it was completely at odds with their inner state. It's like polishing a beautiful antique cup until it shines, but the inside is just caped with grime.
That image sticks with you, yeah. It's jarring. It's like polishing the chrome on a car, making it gleam, but the engine is completely seized up.
Exactly. The outside looks perfect, gives this illusion, but the actual purpose, the reason it exists, is broken.
And this focus on the external, this externalism, it extended to their actions too, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The Gospels highlight how even things that looked good, like giving alms, were often done to be seen by men, as Matthew 23.5 says.
Ah, right. The motivation.
Precisely. It wasn't about genuine love or real concern for people in need. It was about public admiration, getting known for their good deeds. Their heart just wasn't in it. The motivation was all aimed at human applause, not pleasing God.
So their religious efforts, their moral energy, it was all spent on guarding what went into their mouths.
Yeah.
Dietary laws, ceremonial washing, or cleaning the outside of things.
Yeah, instead of dealing with what was actually coming out of their hearts, Jesus called them fools for this, which is, that's a strong rebuke. It shows how frustrated he was with their skewed priorities.
He really challenged their assumption that God only cared about the outside, didn't he? Asking in Luke 11.4, did not he who made the outside make the inside also?
Exactly. He was making it plain. God made the whole person. He cares about the inner being, our thoughts, our desires, our motives, maybe even more than the outward show.
The God who designed the human heart certainly isn't going to overlook its condition.
You wouldn't think so.
So when we look at their inner condition as Jesus described it, it's pretty devastating. The text listed out: greed, self-indulgence, dead bones, uncleanness, hypocrisy, lawlessness.
Chilling details.
Yeah, this wasn't just a minor flaw or slipping up now and then. This was fundamental, pervasive corruption. It defined their spiritual state. Piper calls it an ugly righteousness.
Ugly righteousness. That's a powerful phrase. A facade, really.
Yeah.
A thin coating over a corrupt core.
So how did they keep up that appearance? With such a rotten interior, what did that cost them?
Well, that outward appearance, it wasn't just clever acting. It came from a deep spiritual blindness and really misplaced priorities. Jesus nailed this with another unforgettable image in Matthew 23:24. You blind guides straining out a gnat and swallowing a camel.
Huh, yeah. Think about that picture.
Right. They were so hyper-focused on tiny, trivial details of the law, like making sure they didn't accidentally swallow a gnat in their drink and become unclean.
Straining their wine, literally.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yet at the same time, they completely ignored. No, they swallowed the truly huge things, the spiritual camels of God's law: justice, mercy, faithfulness.
Right, majoring on the minors. It's like obsessively checking the expiration date on a salt packet where your whole diet is junk food.
Exactly that kind of spiritual short-sightedness, obsessing over trifles while missing the whole point of a healthy, God-honoring life. Matthew 23:23 lays it out. You tithe mint and dill and cumin and have neglected the weightier matters of the law: justice and mercy and faithfulness.
So meticulous about herbs from the garden,
Mm-hmm.
but careless about how they treated actual people.
And this blindness wasn't just self-destructive, it was incredibly dangerous for everyone they were supposed to be leading. Matthew 15:14 warns, they are blind guides, and if the blind lead the blind, both will fall into a pit.
So their spiritual deadness was, as the notes put it, suicidal and murderous, harming themselves and misleading others.
Yeah, leading them away from God's true path. Jesus even compared them to unmarked graves in Luke 11:44.
Oof, that's harsh.
It is. Outwardly, they looked clean, respectable, maybe even holy. But internally, they were full of death and uncleanness, defiling anyone who came close to their teaching or practices without realizing it. Like a beautiful flower hiding something venomous.
A hidden, pervasive danger. Unmarked graves. That really hits home. And this spiritual state, it led directly to them putting merciless burdens on people, right?
Yeah.
And actively blocking God's kingdom.
Yes. It wasn't just passive error. They were actively tying up these heavy burdens, hard to bear, and lay them on people's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to move them with their finger. That's Matthew 23:4.
So their interpretation of the law was just severe, uncompassionate.
Completely. The opposite of Jesus, whose yoke is easy and burden is light. They piled on complex rituals, endless rules, but offered no real help, no grace, no relief.
An almost impossible system to live under.
Pretty much. And it had dire consequences. Matthew 23:13. For you shut the kingdom of heaven in people's faces, for you neither enter yourselves nor allow those who would enter to go in.
Wow. So they were like gatekeepers, but keeping people out.
Exactly. Not guiding them in, but actively preventing others from finding real access to God. Standing right in the way. Imagine being desperately thirsty and someone just stands between you and the well.
And it gets even worse, doesn't it? Highlighting how destructive they were.
It does. Jesus says in Matthew 23:15, you make him twice as much a child of hell as yourselves.
Twice as much. That's not hyperbole, is it?
Doesn't sound like it. It reveals a truly devastating impact. They weren't just slightly misguiding people, they were actively leading converts further away from God's path, making them even more like themselves, spiritually dead, and ultimately sharing their miserable destiny.
Creating disciples in their own corrupted image.
And the sources suggest the root of this corruption went even deeper, pointing towards, well, direct satanic influence.
Okay, now we're getting to the core.
Jesus' accusation in John 8, verses 42-44, leaves no room for doubt. You are of your father the devil, and your will is to do your father's desires.
That's not just an insult. He's declaring their spiritual parentage.
Exactly. He's saying their hearts were shaped by Satan's will, their attitudes, their desires reflected the ways of spiritual rebellion against God. It meant their actions weren't just human flaws, but were driven by a spiritual source hostile to God and his truth.
Imagine hearing that in their cultural context. Damning.
Absolutely. And then there's brood of vipers in Matthew 12:34, another searing comment.
Right. And he immediately connects their words to their inner state there too, doesn't he?
He does. How can you speak good when you are evil? For out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks. It's direct link. Their outward talk, their venomous accusations, their pious-sounding words all stem directly from that corrupted inner source, like drawing water from a poisoned well.
You can't get sweet water from a bitter spring.
And they tried to flip it back on him, didn't they, accusing Jesus of working for Satan?
Yeah, in Matthew 12:24, they say, it is only by Beelzebul, the prince of demons, that this man casts out demons, trying to discredit his miracles.
But Jesus just dismantled that argument, pointing out the logical flaw. If Satan casts out Satan, he's divided against himself. How then will his kingdom stand? Matthew 12:26.
Right. His ministry was clearly against Satan, driving out demons, proclaiming God's kingdom, not working with him.
Made their accusation completely hollow. The inescapable fact remained. Their evil words came from evil hearts, and they had no logical way to explain Jesus' power over demons, which clearly wasn't from Satan.
Okay, so we've seen this devastating picture, their outward show, their inner corruption. The obvious question is, what's the alternative? How does Jesus tell us to live differently?
And this is where it gets really compelling. Jesus doesn't just critique, he gives the answer. And his central message is the absolute priority of inward transformation.
Clean the inside first.
That's the core of it, the guiding principle for real godliness. He says it again in Matthew 23:26. First, clean the inside of the cup and the plate, that the outside also may be clean.
So that's his foundational advice.
It is. It means any real external cleanliness, any righteous actions we do are meant to be a direct result of inner change, not some superficial way to get changed.
So the outward behavior is a consequence, a natural fruit of the inward purity.
Exactly. It's not about forcing good behavior to try and become good inside. It's letting goodness flow naturally from a renewed core.
So it's not just about doing good things. The sources make that clear. Do good things is not Jesus' main message.
Right. What really counts for Jesus is external behavior that flows out of a transformed heart. The action itself, no matter how good it looks, doesn't have real value before God unless it comes from a pure motive, from a heart that's been genuinely changed by God himself.
That cuts against our instincts, doesn't it? We often focus on the outward performance.
We do. And this is where that little Greek word hina comes, and that principle. It's small, but it carries huge weight because it signals purpose and result.
Okay.
Cleaning the inside is the prerequisite so that the outside can genuinely be clean. It's not make the outside look good in order to become good inside. That was the Pharisees' mistake.
It's the other way around.
Right. Authentic, God-honoring external life is the genuine fruit of internal purity, cause and effect. The effect, outward cleanliness, follows the cause, inward cleansing.
This really underlines how Jesus sees the heart as the ultimate source, both of defilement and purity.
Absolutely. He made that crystal clear in Matthew 15, verses 17 to 20. He explains that what defiles someone isn't what goes into the mouth, like food eaten with unwashed hands, which the Pharisees obsessed over.
Right.
But what comes out of the mouth proceeds from the heart. That's where the real issues start: greed, anger, lust, all kinds of evil. They originate in the heart before they ever become actions. It's the wellspring.
The source code, almost.
You could say that.
Yeah.
And that's why God's concern is for the whole person, not just the visible bits. Like Luke 11:4, he says again, "Did not he who made the outside make the inside also?"
God's interested in the whole package.
Exactly. Not just our public behavior or how well we follow rules. He cares for the entire person, especially the inner being, the seat of our desires, affections, will, thoughts. He made us integrated beings, and he wants that integration to be pure.
And this understanding of defilement and purity, it directly affects how we live, how we express our faith, right?
It does. The sources connect this to Luke 11:41, where Jesus suggests giving as alms those things that are within.
Okay. What does that mean exactly?
It implies that true generosity, real compassion, genuine self-giving has to come from a pure, loving heart, which is radically different from the Pharisees' kind of giving.
Right. They gave to be seen, to get admiration. It was transactional.
Exactly. But when you give from the heart, it's a genuine outflow of a transformed inner life, a pure spring producing good water, not just putting on a show.
Okay, this brings us to a really crucial point about what true righteousness actually is. It's a remarkably high standard, maybe harder than we first think, but paradoxically, it's also entirely divinely enabled. There's a fascinating tension here.
There really is. The bar is set incredibly high, way beyond just human effort or rule keeping. Matthew 5.2 makes that plain. Unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven.
Wow, that's a high bar.
It is. And it's not about external perfection or being even more meticulous about rules than they were. It's about internal authenticity, a righteousness of the heart.
A quality of righteousness they completely lacked and could never achieve on their own.
Exactly. And what does that deeper righteousness look like? John Stott, who's quoted in the notes, explains it well. Christian righteousness is deeper, being a righteousness of the heart.
An inward righteousness of mind and motive.
Right. Because as Scripture reminds us, 1 Samuel 16.7, Luke 16.1p, the Lord looks on the heart. It's not about ticking boxes. It's about what truly drives the actions from within. The real condition of the heart, which only God sees perfectly. He's not fooled by appearances.
This leads to that paradox you mentioned. Jesus' yoke is easy, his burden is light, but the righteousness he commands is, in another way, impossible for us on our own.
Precisely. Matthew 11:30, my yoke is easy and my burden is light, is such a sharp contrast to the heavy burdens the Pharisees imposed.
We talked about those earlier. Crushing.
Right, but Jesus' commands aren't crushing because he doesn't just give orders and leave us to struggle. As the reformers really understood, he grants what he commands.
Meaning he gives us the ability.
Yes, he gives the strength, the desire, the actual ability to do what he asks through his spirit working in us. It's a divine enablement that can turn duty into delight, or at least make it genuinely possible.
But the hard and impossible part comes when we think about our own human ability for that kind of radical interchange, apart from God.
Exactly. Mark 10:27 highlights this when Jesus says, with man it is impossible, but not with God, for all things are possible with God.
And the sources link this to the rich young ruler.
Yeah, the man who seemed to have it all outwardly, but found he just couldn't give up his wealth for Jesus. His inability to stop treasuring money more than Jesus shows that this kind of fundamental internal change, reordering our deepest loves, is totally beyond our natural power.
We can't just will ourselves to love Jesus more than money or reputation or comfort or whatever our heart clings to.
We can't. And that's where the new heart comes in. It's such a central idea in Reformed thinking and really all biblical theology. The righteousness that exceeds the Pharisees is described as the new heart that trusts Jesus and treasures him above money, praise, sex, and everything else in the world.
The complete reorientation of what we value most.
And this new heart isn't something we manufacture through self-discipline or sheer willpower. It's a gift, God's sovereign grace, given by the Holy Spirit. When God gives you this new heart that trusts and treasures Jesus this way,
then obeying his commands becomes different.
yes, it becomes ideally a natural outflow. Like being told to enjoy your favorite food, it's not a struggle. But changing that heart ourselves, apart from God's work of regeneration and his ongoing work of sanctification, that's truly impossible. It needs divine intervention, a spiritual rebirth.
So how does Jesus flesh this out more? How does he illuminate this deep internal righteousness? He uses these 6 antitheses, right? These contrasting statements.
That's right. These examples from Matthew 5, verses 21 to 48, they aren't about throwing out the law God gave through Moses. They're about fulfilling it, taking us beyond just external rule-following right down into the heart's deepest affections and motives.
So not just minor tweaks to the law.
Not at all. It's a radical rethinking of what righteousness even is, stripping away the external performance to get to the very core of who we are. It's like moving from a checklist to needing a complete heart transplant.
Okay, so Jesus wasn't getting rid of the Old Testament law.
No, he was unveiling its true, deeper spiritual meaning, showing its original intent for the heart. It's like someone gives you a map, and then Jesus comes and shows you the map actually points to this vast, beautiful territory you never even imagined.
Got it. So let's do the first one. From no murder to no anger.
Okay. The Old Testament law says, straightforwardly, you shall not murder. Focuses on the outward act.
Clear enough.
But Jesus goes much further. He says that anger, even without the external act, is like murder. That's Matthew 5:21-26. He equates harboring unjustified anger in your heart with the terrible act itself.
So true righteousness means an internal change that stops that anger from even taking root, even when you feel wronged.
Exactly. It's about the state of the heart that leads to those destructive feelings and actions.
That raises the standard immediately, doesn't it? From don't do the worst thing to don't even harbor the root of it.
Dramatically. And the second one is similar, focusing on the heart, from no adultery to no lust.
Okay. The Old Testament law. You shall not commit adultery. Again, the physical act.
Right. But Jesus expands that right into the inner life, piercing straight to desire itself. He says, everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Matthew 5:28.
Wow. So true purity isn't just avoiding the physical act.
No, it includes the inner state.
Yeah.
Overcoming the heart's tendency towards illicit sexual desire. It's a call for internal chastity, guarding your thoughts and desires, recognizing that sin often starts in the mind long before it becomes an action.
Okay, number 3. From divorce to faithfulness.
Right. The Mosaic Law did allow for divorce because of hardness of heart, as Jesus himself said in Matthew 19:8. It was a concession to human sinfulness.
But Jesus aimed higher.
Much higher.
Yeah.
He presented the ideal of not divorcing except for sexual immorality, Matthew 5:32. He was pointing back to God's original design for marriage as a lifelong covenant.
So the righteousness he wants involves finding solutions internally.
Yes, finding solutions to marriage problems, not just through the external means of ending it, but through the inner spiritual transformation of the heart, aiming for faithfulness, perseverance, real reconciliation within the marriage, reflecting God's own faithfulness to his people.
Okay, then the fourth one, from oath-keeping to simple honesty.
The Old Testament commanded, "You shall perform to the Lord what you have sworn." Matthew 5:33. Focus on keeping your vows.
Making sure you do what you promise with an oath.
But Jesus makes a more radical call. He calls for a heart so transparently honest, so truthful through and through, that you don't even need external confirmations like oaths to make your simple yes or no believable.
Let what you say be simply yes or no.
Exactly. Your word should be so reliable that no extra verbal guarantee is needed. It's about an inner dedication to total truthfulness in everything, which makes formal vows unnecessary because your word is always trustworthy. No need for verbal crutches.
That requires deep integrity. Okay, fifth, from retaliation to loving contentment.
This one's huge. The Old Testament principle, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, was actually about limiting revenge, ensuring justice was equitable.
Right, not escalating things endlessly.
But Jesus gives these 6 really radical commands that go completely against our natural human selfishness and our instinct for self-preservation or getting even.
Like what?
Do not resist evil, turn the other cheek, give your cloak when sued for your tunic, go 2 miles when forced to go 1, give to beggars, and do not refuse borrowers. Matthew 5:39 or 4:2.
Wow, those are radical.
They are, and these external behaviors aren't just tough moral suggestions. They're only genuinely possible if there's been an interchange. If your contentment, your security, your real identity is found squarely in Jesus himself, not in worldly status or stuff or defending your rights.
So it's a call to radical countercultural self-giving that comes from being content in Christ.
Exactly. That's the only way it makes sense or becomes possible.
Okay, finally, the sixth antithesis, from limited love to loving our enemies.
Yeah, the distorted interpretation people had was, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. Which, by the way, isn't actually commanded in the Old Testament law like that, but it was a common understanding.
Okay.
But Jesus directly contradicts this. He shatters those comfortable limits on who we should love, saying, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Matthew 5:4344.
Love your enemies. That's maybe the hardest one.
It feels like it. And this kind of love isn't an emotion we can just drum up. Jesus says it's first a change in the heart, a reorientation of our deepest affections and loyalties.
So praying for persecutors, that reveals something deeper.
It reveals a genuine desire for their well-being, even their salvation.
Okay.
And that requires a massive shift away from self-preservation and hostility towards finding our security entirely in Jesus. This interchange then shows itself in those incredibly sacrificial actions, like praying for and blessing people who are actually harming you.
So let's wrap this up. What does this all mean for us today? This deep dive, it seems to have shown us pretty clearly that Jesus' call to righteousness goes way beyond just external appearances or rule-keeping or anything superficial.
Yeah, he consistently points us inward, doesn't he, to the heart. That's the true source of what actually pleases God.
That righteousness of the Pharisees, it was just an empty show, a meticulously crafted facade, but nothing real behind it.
Exactly. But Christian righteousness, the kind Jesus calls us to, is a true inward disposition, a new spiritual nature, really. And all genuine outward acts of godliness naturally flow from that.
It's a crucial distinction. It shapes everything about how we think about our walk with God. And we've seen that this transformation, this cleaning the inside, this reordering of our loves, it's humanly impossible on our own.
Right. Our natural tendency, because of sin, is towards self-interest and just keeping up appearances.
But it's precisely what God makes possible through his saving work in us, through the regeneration the Holy Spirit brings about.
It's about receiving that new heart that genuinely trusts Jesus, finds him to be its greatest treasure above everything else the world offers. Money, praise, pleasure, whatever it is.
And it's from this new, divinely changed heart that true God-pleasing behavior comes out, not as a heavy duty, but hopefully as a more natural outflow of love and new desire.
Hopefully, yes. That's the goal of sanctification.
So as you, our listener, reflect on all this, maybe consider this. If the core of true righteousness is this inward change that then leads to authentic external actions, what area of your life might benefit most from asking God right now to cleanse the inside of your own cup?
That's a challenging thought. How might seeking a deeper, more sincere heart for Jesus actually bring surprising freedom, real purpose and genuine joy into your daily walk.
We really trust this deep dive has given you some fresh ways to think about Jesus' timeless words and how they continue to challenge our hearts today.
Thank you for joining us on Reformed Thinking.
We look forward to our next exploration together.